Blessings, namaste, and love, everyone. I am spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. Thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with you my astrological and spiritual insights for the month of February 2023. Now, we begin February with a holiday on February 2nd. No, we're not referring to Groundhog Day. February 2nd is referred to as Imbolc, and on that day, it is indicative of the midway point of the winter time frame. On February 2nd, we're halfway through the winter time. We're 6 months into the winter, 6 weeks into the winter, and 6 weeks before spring. At that time, we honor many things. One, certainly we continue celebrating the growing of the daylight. The daytime seems to be getting a little bit longer. We also begin to plant the seeds of whatever we would like to incorporate in our garden in the spring time frame. Certainly, we conduct all of this indoors, so it is an auspicious opportunity to begin thinking about your garden for the coming spring time frame. Perhaps, if you have the availability, begin to plant the seedlings in your home, and we continue honoring the growth and prosperity of the year. We light green and white candles on our altars to honor Saint Bridget, which is the one connected with Imbolc. Green for prosperity, the white for the purity of the coming spring. It's also symbolic of the flower, the snowdrop, the green and white snowdrop flower that, along with the crocus, is one of the first indications of the spring time frame and the blossoming of the coming season. It's also an auspicious opportunity to clear away any unnecessary debris in your home. I've suggested many times to recognize how the winter time frame is the more auspicious opportunity for the spring cleaning. If you haven't yet embarked upon that, use the Imbolc time as the day to really begin to clear away the clutter and the debris, if there is any in your home, and to continue preparing yourself energetically for the coming spring time frame. Now, on February 5th, we have our full moon. Now, our full moon is in the sign of Leo. And as I referred many times, Leo is the sign which most represents love and that part of us that is very, very creative. Every one of us has a creative potential. Remember, creativity is not specific to art and music. Creativity is multifaceted. And this full moon is very much about awakening to many great blessings within ourselves, specifically because the planet, the element that is most associated with great awakenings, is Uranus. Now, Uranus forms what is known as a T-square alignment between the sun and the moon. So if you can imagine what a T-square looks like, that T alignment. The sun and moon are opposite from one another, and Uranus is right in the middle of that opposition. Now, the degree point of Uranus is at 15 degrees of Taurus. The sun and moon, the moon is at 16, almost 17 degrees of Leo, the sun almost 17 degrees of Aquarius. Now, all the signs are measured in degrees and minutes. Each sign of the zodiac is 30 degrees. Now, the 15 degree point, that's the midpoint of any sign. The midpoint is known as one of the strongest points of the signs, because if you can just kind of imagine, just as on an arc, the point, which is referred to as the keystone, that is the strongest point. That is the element of a structure, of an arc structure, that needs to be the strongest, because the entirety of the arc is only as strong as that midpoint. So the midpoint is a prominent place in the astrological wheel. And what I'm emphasizing with this full moon is to allow yourself to really continue to awaken to many great things within ourselves, specifically with this full moon. And I've touched upon this in prior videos, especially how our last eclipse season that we had in October and November very much emphasized the awakening and the power of love. This full moon is another opportunity to allow yourself to fully awaken to the power of love within yourself. Also, the self-love element is certainly something that is very much prominent at this full moon, the awakening of that love within ourselves. You know, whenever we allow ourselves to really be in that place of love, the changes that we experience in our lives are extraordinary. So what I would suggest at this full moon, allow yourself to really have the courage, which is also another Leo element, to really awaken to that power of love within yourself, that element of love that is present in every one of us, the love that is connected to divinity, another Leo quality, so that we can become very sovereign of our lives. You know, I talk about quite often becoming the master of your destiny. And when we can recognize that, and I always suggest to recognize the importance of understanding, to embrace that element of our human being from a place of love and humility, and to be very humble with that knowing of that part of you that every one of us has the ability to tap into. This full moon certainly is an opportunity to recognize that, the power of love, being the master of your destiny. You know, when we allow ourselves to really recognize that constituent within ourselves, you know, we have the experience of what I've said many times, of being in the world and not of it. To just be in a place of peacefulness within yourself. And when we're truly in that place of peace within ourselves, it doesn't mean that the outside world is necessarily peaceful. However, we allow ourselves to just be an observer of what takes place in the outside world, and we don't allow it to really interfere with our wellness and our peacefulness. Certainly with a very strong Uranus placement at a full moon, because Uranus does stir up a lot of energy. It is the one that is most associated with chaos, and erratic energy. But that chaos does serve a purpose when we can recognize it from the spiritual, from the creative point, where it's stirring up energy to create awakenings. I've always said that sometimes the universe has to shake us up to wake us up. And when someone is in a very, very deep sleep, sometimes we have to shake them up a little bit more to awaken them. The universe sometimes does the same thing, and this Uranus placement certainly can indicate a time where a lot of energy will be shifted and stirred up so that it can be released, and we can all elevate to higher levels of consciousness. One of the many blessings of these great times is that the collective of humanity is elevating to higher levels of consciousness, awareness. And that doesn't mean that one has the opportunity and one does not. Every one of us are presented with these opportunities to awaken to higher levels of consciousness, which is really what the age of Aquarius is all about. I may have mentioned quite often that the actual age of Aquarius may not necessarily really take hold for quite a while still. We are still very much in the dawning of the age of Aquarius, which began in the 1960s with certain alignments with Uranus and Pluto at that time. However, it doesn't infer that we can't enjoy the many blessings that is very much part of those experiences. And as I've always said, it needs to begin within the self. So the more that we allow ourselves to really awaken to these higher levels of consciousness, awaken to that constituent of love, which is very much present at this new moon, so many blessings are presented to us, and we receive and we enjoy. So I certainly suggest to perhaps allow yourself to have that courage to see yourself from a place of love, remove the judgments that we all have upon ourselves, and really just be very gentle with yourself, and really observe that every one of us is very much a child of the universe and has that love element within ourselves. Just sometimes we have forgotten, and we get caught up in the everyday life and chaos. So if we observe that chaos element surging a little bit more at this full moon and in the coming times, allow yourself to very much be in the world and not of it. And then all of that seeming disruption in the outside world has no negative impact on your well-being. After a full moon, 2 weeks after a full moon, we are presented with a new moon, and I've always indicated and touched upon how before the new moon we have the balsamic moon phase, which is the time to prepare, energetically prepare for the new moon and the next lunar cycle. That chapter of the lunar cycle begins on February 16th at 9:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I may have forgotten to actually indicate the exact time of the full moon. The full moon is February 5th at 1:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got just a little carried away there, and I forgot to indicate the exact time. The balsamic moon phase begins on February 16th at 9:33 p.m. Eastern Time. As I said, that is the auspicious opportunity to energetically prepare for the next lunar cycle. It is a time of clearing, cleansing, and purging so that we can optimally prepare ourselves for the seeds that we will be planting at the time of the new moon. Now, before the new moon on February 18th, the sun progresses into the sign of Pisces. Pisces represents the area or the aspect of ourselves that dwells beneath the surface. It's the subconscious. It's everything that's going on beneath the surface, in the shadows. Pisces also is very much indicative of the psychic faculties, which every one of us has the opportunity to work with. It doesn't mean that everyone is designed to conduct psychic experiences or psychic situations, but for us to recognize how we all have that intuitiveness, which really is the opportunity to recognize how spirit is guiding us. So what I would suggest to really during this time, work on developing those instincts. And I'm always suggesting to recognize how important it is so that we can properly work with spirit and we can recognize when we are being guided by spirit. It is so important to keep ourselves energetically grounded with the earth vibration and clear in our being. When we're not clear, when we're not energetically grounded, we're not allowing ourselves to fully, clearly, correctly recognize how spirit is guiding us. You know, every one of us has these opportunities, had the experiences, of those gut instincts. That's really spirit tapping you on the shoulder and letting you know, allow yourself to be mindful of what you're observing, what you're feeling, what you're sensing, and to trust those experiences. Pisces represents and is very much indicative of great faith and trust. We're not always taught to really trust when something is coming through for us, to trust our instincts, to trust those gut feelings. If you are challenged with embracing trust, perhaps at that balsamic moon phase, allow yourself to really release and just kind of clear away any discord which is interfering with that trust experience. When we're really truly in that place of trust, so much comes together for us in very extraordinary ways. So at this time, allow yourselves to really work on perhaps strengthening that trust. Also, it's the last sign of the zodiac. So this is the last stage for us to prepare for the coming spring time frame. As I said a few moments ago, Pisces represents the subconscious, that which is going on behind the scenes, that which is embedded deep within ourselves. Many times when the 12th house, which is the sector of the chart that is connected to Pisces, is energized for an individual, quite often deep-seated emotions, memories, experiences start bubbling to the surface so that they can be cleared, cleansed, purged, and released. Perhaps allow yourself this time to really go deep within yourself and allow yourself to really recognize what's going on beneath the surface that may be interfering with your well-being, your overall wellness, creating what you desire. Sometimes we aren't fully aware of those programs that are running in the background of our mind. And this is no different than how a computer operates. I've used this analogy quite often. Just like malware operates on the background of a computer and slows down the function of the computer, these deep-seated, discordant emotions, energies that operate within ourselves that we're not always aware of do slow us down and interfere with creating the life we desire, achieving our goals, and we're not always fully aware of those conditions. This is an opportunity to allow yourself the courage to really recognize what's going on there that perhaps isn't allowing you to achieve and accomplish all that you desire to really bring forth in your lives. When we allow ourselves, and sometimes, as I said, this does require quite a bit of courage to look deep within the self to see what's going on there. But it's certainly well worth the investment and your time. And there are so many different modalities as to how we can really move forth with these experiences. As always, I suggest conducting some research. Really look to see what's available for you in terms of spiritual tools to really assist you on your journey here, and embrace whatever resonates with you. This is also an auspicious opportunity to really allow yourself to courageously think very differently. When we allow ourselves to really to think outside the box, we receive alternative and abstract understandings to any situation. These are also opportunities to tap into our own personal, unique level of genius thinking. I learned a long time ago that every one of us has the potential and the ability to tap into genius level thinking. And again, that's not specific to quantum physics or solving complex mathematical equations. Every one of us has the potential to tap into genius thinking. And just as every one of us has a creative potential, which isn't specific to art and music, every one of us, each of us, has the potential to think as a genius, which, simply stated, the ability to perceive outside the box alternatively. So perhaps at this full moon and even at this new moon, let yourself recognize your own unique genius potential, and whatever might be interfering with that, let yourself have the time to clear it all away and observe just how differently you perhaps embrace yourself, see yourself. You know, in order for anything to really progress and so that creativity can be fortified, change must be present. Change will always fortify and stimulate creative growth. Before, earlier, as when I was referring to the full moon in that T-square alignment, the square, which is a 90-degree angle between two elements, whenever that aspect is presented, we are always have the opportunity to embrace great change. Just many of us are sometimes fearful of change, and the experience is perceived as negative, where in fact it's truly an auspicious opportunity to stimulate and fortify creative growth. I digress a little bit, excuse me, as I seem to always do. However, what I'm emphasizing, especially with the new moon that we have on February 20th, and the exact time of the new moon is 2:05 a.m., and it's in the early degrees of Pisces. So it is that opportunity to really embrace some of those Piscean qualities. Also, too, Pisces very much connects and represents compassion. You know, it would serve all of us a greater purpose during these most auspicious times to really, one, be very compassionate and very gentle with ourselves, but also to observe what's happening in the outside world from a place of compassion, but also, too, from that place of love. Leo, as I mentioned, represents the love element. Pisces, which is ruled by the planet Neptune, represents what I have come to know as spiritual love. That experience is pure love, which is completely unconditional. And you know, we are all being inspired to really be in that place of love and to observe all things from that place of unconditional love. That power of love, when we tap into that, when we fully can tap into that element, it's extraordinary, especially when we are challenged with perhaps something that needs to be healed within ourselves, whether it be emotional or something physical. That power of love is extraordinary. And we can't emphasize enough for every one of us to really embrace that love element. And these planetary alignments, as I said, the eclipses and what's taking place right now are so much inspiring us to really embrace that love constituent, the power of love, and fully understand it. And first and foremost, allow yourself to really be in that place of love within yourself. At the full moon, at the new moon, whichever one of those alignments perhaps might be resonating with you a little bit more, perhaps light a candle to really help awaken you to that love constituent within yourself. And once we all can advance to that place, or at least when the majority can advance to the place of love, that's where we will fully begin to cross that threshold into, as I said earlier, the age of Aquarius. It may not be for quite a while still. However, it doesn't infer that we do not have the opportunity to enjoy that time right now, which is a time of oneness, a time of brotherhood, a time of universal love. We are progressing so very fast through this year. I will be returning to the mystical moon in April. They already have my dates when I will be meeting with clients. You can contact the mystical moon in either Bonita Beach or Fort Myers directly to schedule your time with me. April will be here before we know it. I believe my first day of sessions is April 17th. And as always, my schedule does fill up very, very quickly, and I'm always very excited to be coming back to Florida. So, once again, I am spiritualist, psychic astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. I thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share with you my insights to some of the many, many planetary alignments and spiritual potentials of this coming month. Many blessings. Namaste.